Okay, hello everyone. I hope you all are doing well. My name is Iqbal Chaudhary. I'm a PhD student in mechanical engineering at Hopkins and the director of education in Graduate Consulting Club. So I'm absolutely thrilled to have you here. Today, this is going to be the first installment of the Fireside Management Chat. And the idea of this lecture series is going to be to solve or to answer some of the burning questions that we have. I mean, if we want to join consulting, some questions like what is consulting? What exactly are the skill sets that I need to join a consulting company? Or some general questions like how do I transition from academia to industry after a PhD, let's say. So the list is endless. Therefore, we bring you Fireside Management Chat. Every other Friday, we will sit together and try to learn something very cool about management. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome today's speaker, Leslie Kendrick. Leslie is a senior lecturer at the Center for Leadership Education at Hopkins. She has 12 years of experience as a marketing practitioner. And today, Leslie will provide a brief overview of key marketing concepts. And then we will do a quick, short case analysis on the launch of two new products. So before we go ahead, I would like to, well, yeah. Can you guys please download two files, and the link to the link to the Google Drive is in the chat box. So if you can't download those two files will be necessary for the case analysis. And if you can't download it, just send me your email ID and I'll share those quickly with you. Other than that, I think we are good to go. Some housekeeping rules. So just keep your microphone muted while the presentation is going on. You can type in all your questions through the chat box and I'll try to organize them for Leslie later. And this talk is being recorded for, I mean, we want to keep the content for future members. So if you have any issues with that, you can just turn off your cameras. So over to you, Leslie. Yeah,
okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, and so could you please send the link again on chat?
Yes, I am doing that.
He'll monitor that. Okay, so as was mentioned, my name is Leslie Kendrick. You have a, believe in the announcement, you have a little bit on my background. I worked in industry for about 12 years in marketing management, in several different functional areas of marketing. So I actually worked in outside sales. I worked in product and marketing management, and I had a role that was kind of a hybrid marketing and finance role. It was called business manager in the international division of the publishing company that I worked at for 7 years. And that was Lippincott, Williams and Wilkins, which was since taken over by Wolters Kluwer. Some of you may read their journals. In any case, as was mentioned in the bio, I teach on the Homewood campus. I teach only undergrads right now, full-time, in the Center for Leadership Education, which is kind of the entrepreneurship hub, and also houses our business minors for the undergrads on Homewood. So I've actually taught full-time now, transitioned into teaching a while back, and have been teaching now for about 19 years. Most of that full-time. So a couple years part-time, raised a couple kids, and that's where I am. All right, so before I actually jump into the slides, I wanted to ask students here, I wanted to ask you a question, and I'm going to ask only one student to refrain from typing in the chat. So I want to hear from everyone except the Cary School student, Matthew, because Matthew is going to probably nail the answer to this. So I would like to ask you to put in the chat what you think marketing is, just in a sentence. What is marketing? So just type whatever comes to mind, a couple of words, phrase, anything. And I just would like to kind of get a read. Okay. I need more than one. So for those of you not on your, I think 2 of you are on your phone. Okay, influencing people. All right. What else? Is everyone else on their phone? Branding and advertising, thank you. Promoting product brand, creating value. Okay, good. That's a wonderful start. Suppliers, product prices. All right. All right, sounds good. All right, so let's just jump into the agenda for today. I'm going to be very brief going through a couple of slides, just a really brief overview, because I do want to spend the time doing what I would call one case component, or one component of a marketing case that I typically use. I've used actually for this club before in the past, and students seem to like working through it. So it's not a complete case because that would be kind of challenging to cover in just 1 hour or a little less than an hour. All right, so here's a little info. Whoops, let me go back. A little info again on myself. Here's my email address if anyone wants to follow up. It's kendrick@jhu.edu. I see I didn't change the date to 2020. That's an interesting thing to have forgotten. So I pulled this up from last year. My apologies. Okay, so a little bit of a career bio. These are the companies I've worked for. I worked for a coat manufacturer, London Fog. I worked for a medical journal publisher, and I worked for a college textbook publisher. Written a couple of cases for a marketing textbook. Our agenda for today. So I'm going to provide a very cursory overview of marketing. And so there are plenty of marketing books out there. There are books on entrepreneurship if you're looking to start a business. So, you know, let me know if you are looking for additional reading. We're going to focus mostly today on reading a very short case around a company called Apex Chemical. This really lends itself to doing a quick analysis. It's kind of fun and interesting, and it really doesn't matter that it's a chemical case. This is about a company trying to decide between two different products to launch, and you'll see what factors kind of come into play. So the one thing about case analysis, while you do gain some insight into certain industries, there's a lot of you know, the lessons learned translate across industries, okay? So that's the value of case analysis. So, and then I'll give you an epilogue and tell you what the company actually did after you decide what your recommendations are. All right, so coming back to the definition of marketing, there is an American Marketing Association, and this is their definition. So, yes, it includes communicating, delivering, exchanging offerings. There is value for customers. And so a good number of the pieces of what you entered in the chat do apply. So sometimes I ask this question and students will say, I want to understand how marketers make me buy things. And I come back and say, you know, who is twisting your arm and taking that money out of your wallet? It's, you know, it's really up to you. And marketers are really looking to develop products that have points of difference and identify needs and try to capture those needs through new products that they develop. If there isn't a need, a product is not going to last long. All right, so the strategic marketing process, and you've probably had some exposure to this if you're doing pro bono consulting. So the strategic marketing process fits into that overarching strategic planning process, which every organization goes through, usually annually. And strategic plans can be 1-year plans, 5-year plans, 10-year plans, and strategic plans involve, you know, the CEO on down. The marketing planning and the strategic marketing process is managed by the marketers within that framework. So once corporate goals and plans are set, these are the stages. So you have planning, and I'm sure most of you are familiar with the SWOT analysis. The market product focus is just assessing what the market looks like, what products you have in the market, how you're doing with those, and then thinking about whether or not you want to focus on new markets, new products, or a combination of those two. Goal setting, obviously, in a marketing plan, in the marketing planning process or strategic marketing process, you've got to outline goals. You know, what markets do you want to be in? What % of the markets do you want to capture? You know, unit, dollar sales, all of those things. The marketing plan is executed in the implementation phase. And so the marketing plan is essentially your roadmap. And so in many of my roles, my jobs, I was developing marketing plans for medical journals, what have you. In the evaluation phase, I think that when students complete one of my courses, even my basic marketing class, I think most students are, I think, a little surprised at how involved, I think is the word, how involved and kind of expansive marketing is. So a good marketer is going to look at results, evaluating them against goals, and look for deviations, look for where you surpassed your goals, where you fell short, and then you're going to make adjustments for that planning stage as you go through the next cycle, whether that's a year from now or what have you. Okay, and so one of the core concepts or just constructs is the marketing mix. And so this graphic, I pulled this from the web and just outlines the marketing mix, or the 4 Ps, all of which are part, comprise, or represent the company organization strategy. Okay. All right, and so segmentation, market segmentation is important, and in terms of the ability to group buyers into segments that have common needs. There's no marketer that has an unlimited budget. Even at the largest firms, when the budgets are really large, they're still never unlimited, and it is a waste of resources to throw things at a wall and or just to spend to go target everyone. It's just not efficient. So these are the definition and reasons that segmenting your market, grouping your customers into subgroups is important. It allows you to tailor the marketing mix to these specific segments. Okay, so I may have segments. If I have a device that is a needle for testing for type 2 diabetes, I might be marketing that to elderly people, but I might also be marketing it to individuals that have elderly relatives that they're caring for. And how I market and reach those 2 segments to get my messaging out is going to be very different. They will consume different media. They will have different consumer behavior. Some may be on the web purchasing, some may not be. Okay, so that is just kind of giving a tangible example to the importance of segmentation. All right, I threw this slide in. Many of you conduct research around your PhD, you academic research. Market research is something that is going to come up in this very short case that we're doing. And so I wanted to provide at least a couple of examples of why market research might be done. And it's done for a very broad array of reasons, but it certainly can inform the development of new products, and it certainly can inform ways to improve products. Okay, and this is the BCG, Boston Consulting Group matrix, which is kind of a hallmark in most marketing textbooks, just showing relative market share and market share growth. And in my career, I had my share of marketing all of these. So I had stars, I had cash cows, I had dogs, I had question marks. One of the question marks was a journal that wasn't performing for us, but we managed to sell it to a smaller publisher that had lower overheads, and they were able to make it profitable. So yes. All right. Another important thing to recall or just to consider, and this should be helpful with your future speakers if they're walking you through a complete case or what have you. If you're looking at selling to businesses versus selling to consumers, the characteristics are quite different. And so if you launch a business or if you work in a business, you will know that you have fewer customers if you're selling to businesses, that they are most likely going to involve, if you're in the sales process, there are going to be multiple decision makers. The negotiations, therefore, are going to be more complex and take longer. And one of the other really important things is that the main promotional method in selling to businesses is going to be personal selling. So if you think about having a product, whether it's, okay, so let's see, in my medical publishing days, we had what we called bulk subscription deals or sponsorship programs that we sold to pharmaceutical companies. The pharmaceutical companies would then have some kind of, there'd be some kind of thank you or welcome note. Sometimes we had their name on the cover of the journals, and the journals went to fellows or residents in training who received this journal free of charge. So the pharmaceutical companies underwrote the cost of these medical journals and then placed ads and did some branding themselves. So the idea was to engender some affinity with that company over the year that the resident or fellow in medical school would be receiving that journal. So those types of programs, they, are, could have made our company $50,000 or a couple $100,000 a year. But they were much more involved to sell because of the scope of the programs, multiple decision makers, all of the characteristics in this middle column. All right. So let me come back to any questions before we jump into the Apex case, which we're going to need a little time to read. Any questions on anything that I've presented so far? Okay. I don't know. Am I missing anything in the chat? Let me take. Whoops.
No, not really.
Something just I just hit the wrong button. Let me go back to where I was. Slide normal. Okay. All right. So shoot. Hang on one second. All right, so what I'd like everyone to do, you're going to read the Apex chemical case, but I need to explain the instructions. What I'd like to do is, should we even try to put people in breakout rooms for this or have it? It's a little more fun, but I don't know how many are on their phones.
I think there's one person, Joe Veriel, is on phone, I think. And
well, we can try the breakout.
Yeah.
What do you think? We'll try the breakout rooms. Okay, so we'd like to break people out in pairs, but let me walk you through some of these handouts first. Basically, I'm asking you to read what's actually a dialogue between a couple of executives at a chemical company. And interesting to note, to take note of, is the title of each of these executives. So you have a vice president of research, which is like market research. Okay, so that person is going to oversee the research that's done around new product development. You have the president of the company as another person, obviously is going to have a certain perspective. And then you have a vice president of marketing who oversees marketing and the sales force. So you have these three different roles. And one thing that comes out in the case is that they have different perspectives, okay? And so you are presented in this case with two possible product launches. And what I'd like you to do is to, I want to share a screen here on, this was one of the handouts in the chat. This is the Excel spreadsheet. So this is an example with the ABC company of a summary assessment table, which is done in conjunction with one of the case components that I call the analysis of alternatives. So again, this is just one case component. And what I like to suggest to students is that they think about, as they read the case, they think about which criteria here, which criteria would be most relevant to assess based on the focus of this case. So I think it'll make sense as you read the case. The one caveat is that I always require, and there is a reason I require profitability as one of the 3 criteria. So you have a choice of choosing 2 from these others: strategic or organizational fit. So how does this particular product fit with what the company's doing now? Resource requirements can be what will it take corporately, financially, and human resource requirements. And then the third is competitor reactions. So if you were to launch product A or product B, what type of competitor reactions might you see? And so in this, it's a very simple analysis. You are rating each alternative 1 and alternative 2. So what I'd like you to start off with is change this and just type A115, which is the one of the products proposed, and this one is B227. And so if we can get at the end for someone, someone to share a screen, that would be super. But basically, I want you to think about the weight out of 1.0. And so this is just arbitrary for this chart. You're going to think about the weight of the 3 criteria you chose. So profitability is required for Apex, but I'm going to let you choose those 2. You can also modify these weights. Now, would I make profitability like 0.1 out of 1.0? Probably not, because this is a corporate decision and making money is important, but you have the ability to change those weights. The ratings are on a scale of 1 to 5. So you are going to type in a rating, and then the weight times the rating is a formula that's already in this for you. And this is the credit to the textbook that I originally pulled this from. Does this make sense in terms of what I'm asking you to do? Select 3 relevant criteria, select 2 other than profitability, touch up the weights, but make sure they're still out of 1.0, and then let this calculate. And so then what you're going to do is you are going to compare these 2 numbers. So if they're close, even if they're not close, I want you to think about qualitative aspects in the case and which one you'd recommend the company launch and why. So this is one way to kind of quantify and add to the qualitative assessment that you would perform in a case analysis. Okay, and it lends itself for a very short period of time. All right, so let me stop sharing that and just see. All right, so do we want to send people into rooms? I could
Yes, yes. Just before that, I wanted to clarify if everyone has the Excel sheet and the document, the 2 documents that is in the G Drive. So you can raise your hands virtually if you go to participants, or you can just react with a thumbs up.
Does everyone have the sheet? Uh-oh.
They should have it. Like, okay, so Joe has it.
Is Joe the only one who has access? Okay, okay. Here
Shruti has it.
reaction thumbs. That works if you
Yep.
don't have video.
What about others? Okay, very cool. So, what about Nina, Quile, and Harpreet? Okay, they're not responding. So let me create the breakout rooms, and we can take from there. So I just got to lab trying to start my laptop. If I should go ahead, I should be able to participate. Okay, no problem. We'll create the breakout rooms. And so just give me a sec. So yeah, I created the rooms. I think they're joining rooms one by one. So Leslie, do you want me to assign you to one of the rooms one by one?
No, actually, we'd like to give them a couple minutes and then come
Okay.
back and just
Yeah.
do a debrief if they can just complete the spreadsheet. So do you want to, yeah, they've got to read the case, complete the spreadsheet, and our stopping is at 1. So I would say it, you know, um,
So it's
can we
12:37
go a little
now.
bit over, like 105?
Okay. Okay.
We should probably have 10 minutes to discuss. We can do a little less than 10 if we need to.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. So let me know when you want to close the breakout rooms, and
Yeah, it may be nice to send them a note saying in the breakout room that they have until whatever time to complete the spreadsheet. Do you want to say 12:50?
yeah, sounds good.
And if you have a chance, you could read the case too.
Yes, yes, I am trying to do that. So I have another screen here. So I have to open the Excel sheet, right? That's where the case is.
I think the case is a PDF.
I just told them that they have time until 12.
So how many rooms are you working with now? 2?
Yeah, true.
Okay.
So that's a long conversation. Yes.
So if you would like to put me in one room and then move me, maybe I'll do that and just see if there are any questions or. Okay. They are right on target. How about the other room?
Yeah, let me do that. So I'm trying to add you to group breakout room 2. Could you join?
Don't see the thing yet.
Let me try it again.
Hang on a second. Oh, shoot. Hang on. Now I see it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
How's it going?
It's typical. So the group 2 is, some of them were still reading. So
Okay, yeah.
that's the thing with jumping in the rooms too soon. They're still reading it, but yeah. But I said you have about 4 minutes to do your spreadsheet.
Yeah.
No pressure.
So the only place, so the relative weights is common for both products, and the only changes that you can make once you are sure about the relative weight are the ratings, right? So that's where you change the ratings and get.
You can actually change the relative weights as well.
Okay.
So that is something you can play around with. But in my example, I would not suggest changing profitability to be a very tiny fraction.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all.
Understood. And the ratings will come from like the case conversation that is in the PDF, right?
So the weight, this is the relative weight times the rating. So in the top left, the one that's blank right now, this would be 0.3 times 5 is 1.5. So I've already formulated that column. So if someone were to type in these, it would calculate itself.
Yeah.
And
I got it.
same thing.
So eventually, based on the final output, you decide which product you want to go forward with.
You look at the numbers, but the numbers don't always tell the whole picture. So oftentimes the numbers are fairly close, but it's really going to depend on which criteria you choose and how you weight them as well. So there are trade-offs between, the idea here is to not only rely on the numbers, to think about the issues and the company and the actual other qualitative aspects that are described.
Yeah.
And kind of compare both the chart and the qualitative issues and make an assessment or make a recommendation.
Got it.
So yes, marketing is very inexact, unlike many of the programs that you all are involved in.
Yeah. Okay, 1 more minute to go.
Yeah, we can give them another, yep.
you want me to close it now?
Sure.
Okay. So they'll be back in 30 seconds.
All right.
Okay.
Sure. Okay, so let's actually start off by asking for a one sentence kind of synopsis of the case and what you just read. Just one sentence or one or two sentences. Who would like to jump in and just state what's happening and what, you know, how would you characterize what's going on? Joe, you're the only one with video activated,
Yeah.
so you're it.
I guess that puts me on the spot. Yeah, so Apex Chemical has a meeting with their upper level management where they're deciding whether to pursue one of two new products that they've researched. And one of the products is A115, which is an electrolysis product in a market that the company is not currently operating in, that has a single competitor who owns 95% of the market share. The other product, B227, is a plastic oxidizer for which they have existing products in that market. And additionally, it's a more competitive landscape. There are multiple other companies that make plastic oxidizers.
Okay.
Additionally, there are two different types of plastic oxidizers. The beta, sorry, I can't remember the specific names, but
Don't worry about it. Two
Yeah,
different kinds
yeah.
is fine.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. So that was actually way more in depth than needed, but that pretty much in a nutshell characterizes what's going on. Let's actually come back to perspectives of the players, the executives in this case. So where is Matthew? Matthew, I know you're there. What's
Yep, I'm here.
What's the president's priority?
So the priority of the president, I believe, is the profit to ensure that the company can make as much money as possible.
Okay, and who else do we have here? Who else is live and would like to contribute? Tell me what the perspective is of the VP of Research. Do we have anyone else who'd like to jump in? The VP of Research.
Anushruti, you want to go for it?
Yeah, he definitely wants to sell the best product.
Wants to sell the best product that's proven through the market research that's been conducted, right? Okay, the superior product. And then what's the perspective of the VP of Marketing, the Vice President of Marketing? It's a little different. It's not quite, who'd like to offer that one?
He doesn't want to lose his foothold on the already existing market with the product that they already have.
Okay, okay. Is he concerned about launching the superior product or something else? What seems to be his kind of a little more perspective on that VP of Marketing?
He focuses more on market needs, like what the market wants.
Okay, okay. He's focusing on it. He has a comfort level with where his organization currently has resided in terms of that market sector, that market space where the B227 resides. Okay, so now, you know, in looking at this case, one thing I think that's blatantly obvious is that you know, just because a market size is greater, that may not necessarily mean there's more for everybody, and that's the way to go. But so what you have here is kind of almost a clash of perspectives. The VP marketing versus the VP of research, who claims to have the superior product. As was mentioned so well by Joe, the characteristics of the market for A115, and I'm just going to use the letters and numerals because I don't know exactly how to pronounce some of these chemical you know, compounds either. So A115 is supposedly a technical breakthrough. There is one competitor, but apparently people are 95% satisfied with Hamfield, this competitor. The market size is $10 million a year. It is not growing, it's level. Okay, so that's another thing we look at with growth, with case alternatives, right? Is the market level, growing, declining? And then there's some superiority in the market research. B227, Apex has a reputation with plastic oxidizers. So Apex is well known in this sector, but this product is not better. There is no point of difference or superiority versus the existing products. There are 3 strong competitors and then 6 off-brand competitors. So I assume that the 3 are branded and the other ones are off-brand, maybe private label. It is a $40 million market. It is 4 times the size in revenue potential. And oxidizer sales are 25% of Apex's total sales, but Apex's sales are down 10% in this area while the total market is growing. Okay, also something that's noteworthy. All right, who would like to share their spreadsheet? I'd like to see from both groups if we have time. Well, either group, jump in, share your spreadsheet, tell me which criteria you chose and why, and which product you recommended.
I can share from group 1. I was tasked with.
You were the scribe. Okay, super.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so I'll start, I guess, and then allow anyone else in the group to jump in. But you could see that we chose, in addition to profitability, organizational fit and competitor reactions.
Okay.
So organizational fit, we thought made the most sense because much of the conversation was about the company's reputation and existing products and how a new product would either diversify their portfolio into a new market or add to their existing portfolio in a current market.
Okay.
So I think parties seem to be polarized about how entering into a new market would impact their organization.
Okay.
And competitor reaction. Sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, competitor reactions we chose because, well, really we decided not to choose resource requirements because we thought that both of them had already been investigated thoroughly, and they would require the same amount of resource in order to actually launch the product. So for that reason, we chose competitor reactions.
Okay, and then your totals were 3.2 and 3.6. So did your group have time to discuss whether or not you would lean toward launching the B227 or whether you would make a decision that went against the numbers because they're not hugely different?
Yeah, not really. We sort of began talking about profitability, but we didn't really get into talking about future growth. I don't think that came up at all. And the fact that the A115 market is stable, whereas the B227 market is growing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And typically in a in a full case analysis, you'd actually calculate, you'd have a side calculation on profitability. You actually work with some of the data in the case, but there's only so much we can do in an hour. Okay, super. So I have a question. So you chose to include competitor reactions, and that would be due to the nature of both markets? Is that the rationale? Yeah. But then again, you weighted it fairly low rather than kind of weight evenly. Was there a rationale for that?
Yeah, well, we just thought that organizational fit, based on the conversation, was a huge we thought that organizational fit should have been weighted higher, and we didn't want to take weight from profitability because that is obviously very important. So it was sort of like making up for the fact that organizational fit seemed to be weighted higher.
Okay. Okay, sure. No, I get that. All right, group 2, just maybe throw your spreadsheet up. We're running short on time and I want to give you the epilogue, but tell me if you chose the same 3 criteria or different ones.
I shared my screen up here,
Okay.
but Reiki is actually going to present.
So
Okay.
we did not choose the same criteria. We chose the competitor reactions and the resource requirements. Since these are 2 technical products, and we think there's a technical breakthrough in product A115 and a kind of master products of B227. So and then we keep the same relative weights between these 2 chosen criteria, and and profitability is important, so we keep the 0.4 weights. And to rate these 2 products, we think we rate B227 a 5 here for profitability, since even though its marketing share is decreasing this year, it's still have a really large 25% of market share and a very large marketing total, so we rate it high. And it has 3 competitors. Yeah, so for product A, its profitability, since it's a smaller market size, and its competitor takes up 95% of this whole market, so we rated the competitor very high and the profitability relatively low. So so after calculation in totals, we think this company should launch B225. Stick to the plastics.
Okay, super. So we can take that screen back, and I'll give you a brief recap. It was interesting to see the second group chose resource requirements and what you could have considered. And again, organizational fit there's some overlap between those 2 resource requirements. You know, in thinking about familiarity with the market and the training and connections and networking that would have to be done to go into this other sector that they didn't currently have all those contacts, and you could have argued that that would be part of the resource requirements other than just the chemicals themselves, like the raw material inputs. But I'd like to provide an epilogue here. So interestingly enough, the company chose to launch them both. And the A115 lost a ton of money the first year or 2. And B227 started out strong, and then everything flipped. A115 was proven to be the superior product. They recouped some of their losses and became profitable, and B227 was phased out because it couldn't hold its own in that competitive landscape. So it's just very interesting to kind of look and see what the corporation did, but it's the process of thinking through, choosing the criteria, and then, you know, thinking about all of these other decisions that's fun. In my opinion, it's the fun aspect of analyzing marketing cases. So that is all I have. Are there any last questions before we wrap up?
I guess I have one question. When you're talking about the profitability, are you talking more about the short term or long term? Because if you to your point, if you're thinking about it in the long term, then A115 would obviously be the right choice based off, what you were talking about. But if you're talking about just in the, 2 to 3 years right now,
Right.
I think you can make the argument that, to your point, the resource implementation, the organizational fit definitely takes, the costs are much higher
Right.
initially, and you would think that the B227 would be more profitable.
So that is a great question. And what I would say is, whether you're taking a course or whether you're interviewing, you're in a consulting interview, if the case doesn't specifically point to the fact that the company is large and has sufficient resources to absorb losses initially, or if the company profiled in the case is a startup that's a little more cash strapped, you might adjust your analysis accordingly, or at a minimum talk through that with an interviewer. So I've been involved with our Career Center, who trains our undergrads in consulting interviews as well. And as long as you either verbally or in written fashion state your assumptions based on anything. Now, looking at this case, it's a chemical company. It doesn't appear to be a startup that's cash strapped for money. And I don't think it says anything to that effect. So that's a great question. And you would just talk through that if you were in a consulting interview, so that the interviewer knew what you were considering.
Great, thank you.
Yep, sure. Anything else? Anything in the chat? Are we good?
Yeah, I mean, you can type your questions in the chat as well.
Okay. It's fine if you want to wrap.
Yeah, all right. I mean, that was fantastic. And I think it was amazing to see. I mean, the case was also really good. I had a fair bit of,
Good.
so I could go through it, but unfortunately I did not participate in giving the weights. But anyway, so I'm going to share my screen just to do a final announcement. So these are the, can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so this is the list of, these are the list of presentation for up until February 12th, and we'll have more speakers come in. And please register for these events, and let me know if you want some specific topics to consider or find speakers on some specific topics. Yeah, and that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right. See you later.
See you. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye.